Carlos King really had to step in this time, and honestly, it was one of the most necessary moments we've seen in a while. The way things went down made it clear that Leticia could no longer dodge the accountability that has been following her around. For too long, she has been trying to sit on the sidelines, smile her way through, and pretend like none of the real conversations apply to her. But this show is called Love and Marriage Huntsville. That means everybody's marriage, everybody's choices, and everybody's drama are open for discussion. You don't get to be in the middle of it and then try to hide whenever things get uncomfortable. That's exactly why Carlos made her go back, because she was trying to escape the moment instead of dealing with it. Now, let's be real. Nobody is sitting at home deeply invested in Leticia and Mar's marriage in the way she seems to think. People aren't watching to protect her image or let her off the hook. Viewers watch because they want to see the real dynamics between the couples, the highs and the lows, the truth and the lies. But Leticia thought she could just skate by, play the sweet wife role, avoid tough questions, and come out clean every season. The problem is, viewers aren't blind. We've seen how she and Mars have tried to dodge accountability time and time again. And it's not just them. Kimmy and Maurice have been guilty of the same game, always trying to soften or redirect so they don't get exposed. But this particular episode? It showed too much. It pulled the curtain back, and what came out was messy, uncomfortable, and very telling. Take that moment with Miss Nell, for example. Leticia sat there at the table and showed exactly why people call her a gaslighter. She tried to frame herself as respectful while disrespecting someone in the same breath. She told Miss Nell she respected her, but then turned around and told her not to interrupt. Now, the crazy part is, Miss Nell wasn't interrupting. She was calm, collected, and making her point without raising her voice. But Leticia decided to twist it and act like Miss Nell was being aggressive. She even had the nerve to say, "Please don't raise your voice at me." Girl, what? Miss Nell's voice wasn't raised. We all know if Miss Nell wanted to go there, we would have seen it clear as day. She's a woman who knows how to hold her own, but she stayed respectful. Still, Leticia had to pull that classic gaslighting move, trying to make herself look like the victim when she was the one being condescending. The thing with gaslighters is that they will pull random things out of thin air just to throw the other person off. And that's exactly what Leticia did. Instead of sticking to the actual conversation, she started talking about PTA meetings for her son. PTA meetings. Like that had anything to do with how she was treating Miss Nell. That's not an argument. That's deflection. And deflection only makes you look more guilty, not less. The whole exchange came across as Leticia trying to control the narrative, but it backfired. And Mars, just sitting there watching it all, didn't make things any better. Honestly, it felt like he chose the kind of partner who would play along, smile when needed, and avoid digging too deep into anything. But now he's stuck with that, and the cracks are showing. What made it even worse was when Leticia brought up Miss Nell's past infidelity issues in her confessional. That was low, but it also revealed a key difference between them. Miss Nell admitted what happened in her marriage. She dealt with her truth. She didn't run from it. She didn't deflect or pretend. She acknowledged it and moved forward. Leticia refuses to do that. Anytime someone brings up her marriage, she shuts down, deflects, or changes the subject. That's why when her cousin Kiki tried to bring it up, she acted like she didn't even hear her. But see, you can only ignore somebody for so long before they snap. And that's how we ended up with the drink being thrown. Kiki wasn't about to sit there and be ignored like her voice didn't matter. All Leticia had to do was say, "This isn't the right time. Let's talk about it later, maybe off camera." That would have shut the whole thing down respectfully. But no. Instead, she acted like Kiki's words didn't exist, and Kiki wasn't about to play that game. So things escalated. And then, of course, Martel had to come in and add his 2 cents, talking about how Kiki soaked Leticia. Classic Martel, always ready to stir the pot and laugh at the mess instead of helping fix it, but here's where it shifted. Carlos wasn't having it. He saw what was happening and made Leticia go back. She wasn't going to just walk away, smile, and pretend nothing happened. He made her sit back down and face it. And honestly, that's what accountability looks like. For so long, she's been allowed to wiggle out of these tough moments. But Carlos wasn't letting it slide anymore. That's why this episode hit so hard, because for once, she had to sit in the discomfort instead of running from it. Now, while all of that was going on, we can't ignore the side drama with Kimmy and Maurice. Maurice had the nerve to sit down with Kimmy and talk about meeting up with Martel like it was just another casual catch-up. But let's pause right there. Maurice is supposed to be this big-time attorney, someone who understands accountability and responsibility more than most. But every single time Martel gets into a mess, Maurice is right there, defending him. He acts like Martel is just going through a rough patch. But no. Martel created this chaos himself. He's the one who destroyed his marriage, dragged Melody back and forth to court, cheated, and had a baby on the side. That's not a man struggling through a rough patch. That's who he is, and he's shown it repeatedly. So why is Maurice always running to defend him? Simple, because Martel knows too much about the Scotts. Every reunion, the Scott brothers look nervous, praying Martel doesn't spill the secrets. And Maurice thinks if he stays close, maybe Martel won't drag him or his brother. But Kimmy saw right through it. She told Maurice straight up that he needs to spend more time with his son instead of babysitting a grown man. And she's right. Maurice uses Martel as a distraction, but the truth is, he's protecting himself, not Martel. It's also clear that Martel's friendship with Maurice is different from his friendship with Mars. With Mars, Martel gets called out. Mars doesn't sugarcoat. He tells Martel the truth, and Martel doesn't like it because narcissists can't stand being called out. With Maurice, it's softer, more forgiving, more excuses. That's why Martel gravitates toward Maurice more. He knows he can get away with more around him. Meanwhile, back in the Scott household, Leticia continued to show why people are frustrated with her. She told her daughter Macy that she needed to improve her marketing skills, like she was critiquing her in front of everyone instead of guiding her as a parent. Macy wasn't having it, though. She clapped back and told Mars he couldn't talk to her until he grew some hair. That right there showed how the kids see through the nonsense, too. They know when their parents are playing games, but when Macy called Mars out for dropping the ball as a parent, he just laughed it off. That's what he always does. He laughs when the truth gets too close. It's his way of avoiding it, just like Leticia deflects. They both have ways of escaping accountability, and that's why their marriage looks the way it does on screen. Then Leticia tried to argue that Mars shouldn't give his daughter money. Really? That's his child. Providing for her is his responsibility. Yet again, she chose the wrong battle to fight, showing where her priorities are, and don't even get me started on the confessionals. Leticia tried to throw shade at Miss Nell being a life coach, laughing about certifications. But if anybody shouldn't be questioning education, it's Leticia. If she was handing out awards, the only one she'd qualify for would be a coloring book award. That's how unserious she sounded. Instead of worrying about Miss Nell's credentials, she should focus on her own issues and her own accountability. Then came the conversation about Destiny. Funny how now everyone is finally seeing Destiny wasn't anybody's real friend. Melody tried to warn them, but they didn't listen. Destiny was always closer to Martel, and when she linked up with Leticia, it was just about trying to drag Melody down. It wasn't genuine loyalty. And now that Martel is exposing everybody's business, they want to act like Destiny was shady all along. Too late for that realization. The truth has been there from the start. Even Chris Fletcher had something to say, calling out how Leticia would rather copy and paste ideas than actually accept mentorship or guidance. And he's right. She doesn't want to learn or grow. She wants to compete, especially with Melody. She's always been in silent competition, trying to keep up with her instead of focusing on herself. That's why she clings to certain friendships and moments, It's all about staying in the race she created in her own mind, and then we had Miss Nell's comment about men just having needs. That part hit differently, because it showed the mindset that enables so much of the mess in these marriages. Saying a man just has needs is exactly how people excuse infidelity and broken families. But it's not just harmless fun. It leads to side babies, drama, court battles, and a whole lot of pain. Martel is the perfect example of why those excuses don't work. His choices had real, lasting consequences, not just for him but for everyone connected to him. So, looking at the bigger picture, this episode really laid it all out. Carlos had to check Leticia and make her face things. She got exposed for gaslighting. Mars had to admit she was wrong. Maurice got caught once again defending Martel. Kimmy called him out. Miss Nell stood her ground. And underneath it all, you can still see the fear in the Scotts whenever Martel's name comes up, because they know he's holding on to secrets. The best part? This isn't even the end. There's still so much more tea that hasn't been spilled yet, and the longer they try to hide it, the bigger the explosion will be when it finally comes out.